So the first feature I'm going to go through all of them. Some are small, some are some are larger than others. Sorry, looks like there's someone else talking, but okay, they're muted. So the first one is date of birth. So in the date of birth field, it used to be blank when you search by date of birth. Now there are underscores listed there. So it will be underscore based on your user preference. So if you track by month, day, year, like in this one, it'll be split out in that way. If you do it the opposite way, it will be separated by your month, day. But it just makes it easier for the user to see what's missing and how to type in the format for the date of birth. The next is in the client's profile. So in the client's profile, there is now going to be a button where you can click on complete review tomorrow or complete review on next visit. And that will allow you to, when you click on it, the system will put the client's profile in review as of the next day. So what will happen is usually this happens in situations for network administrators where if they see a client's profile with certain notes or it hasn't been reviewed in a while and I think something needs to be changed or they have to meet with the client, you can click on complete review tomorrow and that will make sure that the next time the client comes, their profile is in review. The next one is the sign on screen. So when you're recording a visit, if you do use the e-signature option, when you click on sign in screen, it used to be a blank screen. Now there's an X and a line, so this makes it easier for users to know exactly where they're supposed to sign. Usually, it's just empty, and we've heard requests that people are just kind of confused as to where exactly, like in this box, like this, do I sign? So there's an X and a line. When you do save it, the X and line are not saved. It's just going to capture the image of the signature. The next one is when recording quantity. So for organizations that track pounds, kilograms of food, usually it's a required field and there's a little blue star beside it. Now you can decide if you want it to be optional or not. So this is a setting across the entire network. Some networks have agencies that do track pounds or kilograms and some don't. In this way, if it is an optional field, you can still keep it there for the agencies that choose to track it, and those that don't track it aren't putting in false information just to complete the visit. If you don't track any type of quantity here, there's nothing beside your date box, nothing is going to change in that respect. It will be left as is. Are there any questions about anything I've gone through so far?
So Linda, we had this.
Okay. So I will move on to duplicates. On the client duplicates page, when you usually add a client who has possibly the same first name, last name, first name, date of birth, and last name, date of birth, a possible duplicate notification pops up. What we have found, and I'll have it bring it up now, what we have found is that if you do same first name, last name, the possible duplicate comes up. And if it's not the same, you dismiss it and you click on no. But if you then go to the date of birth and the there's a possible duplicate, like the last name and the first name end up matching, the possible duplicate shows up again. So what happens is that we've now moved it to, let me just save this. We now moved it so that the possible duplicate will show up after the date of birth. So usually just happens after the first and last name. So we just have it happen once so that there's, you're not dismissing the same thing all over again, and it will happen after here. So see if there's any claims here. There we go. So now it shows up after the date of birth. It's just a small thing to get used to. Usually you see it after the first name. You'll see it after the date of birth. We're not changing the criteria. So this doesn't mean that the first name, last name, and date of birth all have to match exactly. It just means that we're going to show the list after the date of birth is entered. The same process will apply on seeing more and seeing if it's the same person or not. The next is a situation where if a client's profile is updated, oh, sorry, there's a couple questions. Let me answer them before I go. Question about the complete review tomorrow. Does that mean next time the client is searched for and found, there'll be a pop-up telling you to review their profile? Yes, at least for the next day. So if I'm in Stephanie McLean's profile and I click on that button, review profile tomorrow, or review profile at next date, or review profile tomorrow, it will let you continue accessing that profile for the day. Then on the next day, the profile will be in review, which means these tabs will be grayed out, which means basically by the next time the client comes in, they will be in review, a forced review. Another question was, why do we have to see more? We cannot do anything until we see more. So the reason for the see more pop-up is, in my case, I only showed a duplicate pop-up because, and there's only one person. So let me see. In this case, there's only one person, but I've seen there are a lot of different places where people have the same first name, last name, and there are probably several duplicates. So they're all listed in a row. So basically the see more allows the person to open each one, and that basically they all show up as collapsible, and by seeing more, you're expanding it. If we didn't have see more and it was all open, it basically would take up the whole page. So clicking on see more allows you to look at this individual one, and then you can manage it, yes or no, and then you go to the next one, if there is one, see more, and then you'll manage that one. And then just to follow up with the next profile review, even if it's a month later, yes. So basically, once a person's in forced profile review, it will stay that way until it's reviewed. So basically, you're saying the next time the client comes in, have their profile reviewed. Whenever it is, have their profile reviewed the next time that they come in. And yeah, tomorrow just means the next time the client comes in. And you're still going through a screen that does nothing. I'm not sure I understand what you mean by it does nothing. By clicking on see more, you get to see the details of the client's profile, but we can talk through it later at the end of the webinar. And I'll just focus on pretty much what the actual new feature is, and then we can talk about the existing features afterwards. So the next feature is being able to merge existing client profiles. So there have been situations where people find duplicates because the first name and last name may have been, or one of the client profiles like you have to click on one of the client profiles and then you realize one of them may have been misspelled incorrectly, or maybe the date of birth, the month or day has been reversed. So in that case, when you update it, the possible duplicate shows up. So let's see. So in this case, I updated the last name to one that was already in the system, and a possible duplicate showed up. It asks you if this is the client that you're looking for. That is the usual, the yes or no, and the view that is there. An additional option now, and something that will only show up if you're updating client profiles, is merge. So this allows you basically, by comparing an existing profile in the system and the one that you've just currently updated, the system will allow you to merge those two profiles alone. By clicking on merge, it will show you very similarly the page or the rows that are shown on the client duplicates list, and then you're clicking on merge the same way you would on that page. So for anyone not familiar with merging client duplicates, you're going to click merge on the one you want to discard. So if I click on merge, you're taken to the same intermediary page that you usually are when merging client duplicates. You're still going to be shown what the profile will look like right before the merge, and you're still going to be shown the visits that are going to be merged over.
Same.
Right.
Otherwise, because we don't limit that.
The next are the changes on the client duplicates list. So there have been many suggestions to better manage the client duplicates list that networks have. So one of them is being able to sort the columns. So every column now can be sorted. Just by clicking on them, the page will refresh and sort them either alphabetically or in chronological order. The next is there used to be just a search box at the top, which only allowed you to search for first name, last name, and client ID number. This new search box is now as versatile as the one on the dashboard. So you can still search for those three, but you can also search for the first and last together, the last and first together, the date of birth, and even address. So anything basically on this page that can be searched upon. The other filters include the start and end date, which is the start and end date between when clients were added to this duplicates list. So you can filter that way. You can filter by location. And then the number of matching criteria, so how many of these exact matches there are. And household details, so no visits or no other household members. Some users find it easier to quickly merge duplicates that have no visits or household members because there's fewer to deal with, so you don't have to compare the visit dates, and you don't have to compare or find out, which basically is John still living with Sarah, and if there are additional household members that still exist. The next option is the ability to see the other household members. So usually you would click on view to see the full side-by-side, which you can still do. But by clicking on this little plus button, you'll see if there's anyone else in the household. If there's no button, that means that that's the only person in the household. Lastly, there are banners on both the client duplicates and the dismissed duplicates list. And that will show it's basically letting you know that whatever is inside the brackets is what the profile looked like when it was originally added to the list. So typically the list that you're looking at, sometimes users submit tickets and say, I don't understand how these two profiles got on a duplicates list, they're not the same. It's because you're seeing how they are now, how they were updated, and not what the profiles look like at the time someone dismissed them or ignored them, a feature we had previously. There's a question about how do you delete a duplicate in a household. So the system doesn't check duplicates within the same household. So if you have Sarah McLean and Sarah McLean, and they both live with Stephanie McLean, you would remove Sarah, one of the Sarahs at least, basically. And by doing that, the system will catch it on the overnight task and it will put it on the client duplicates list. Are there any questions about any of the changes to the client duplicates?
Yes, I have a question. You mentioned earlier on that the possible duplicates will show up after the date of birth,
Right,
but it's using the same criteria it used before.
right.
So, so my question is, if I'm trying to look for a client, I put in the first name, last name, and date of birth, even if it's going to still give me a list of everybody with the same names, regardless of date of birth.
Right.
Is that what you're saying? So then
Right.
you still have to go through on each one and click no, 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 no.
Yeah, the
before you
whole,
can
yeah,
proceed.
right. So the criteria hasn't changed at all. It's just basically when it's popping up. It used to pop up after the first name and the possible list there. And then what we found is that when people started entering the date of birth, there were other possible duplicates, so it just re-showed the entire list. So what we've done is it's the same. Nothing has changed with the criteria. It's just that it's now going to show after also checking date of birth possible duplicates and then show you one list. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it answers my question. I don't know that I guess there's more than one way to look at it. It's just when you're kind of in the heat of the battle and getting people checked in, it can sometimes feel like a necessary labor, I guess, to go through and like no, 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 no. You'd be surprised at how many times you'll find the same name sometimes.
Oh no, yeah, we definitely, yeah. I mean, one of the things that we're going to look into is we know that there are certain areas, especially in the States, where people have the same first name and last name, just based on, like even just by culture as well, or just from where they are. So we are looking later in the year about finding basically the list of those common names, the most common names, first and last names used, and then also looking at more of an algorithm to basically help the client or help the user determine, what's the possibility or percentage that this is, this client is a duplicate. But we have talked to a lot of networks, and we've talked to a lot of food bank networks and a lot of network administrators, and as much as they do mention that their agencies, some have mentioned like they have to dismiss it, and they do have to dismiss a lot. The way that it was before was worse than that, because I'm not sure how long you've been on the system, but before, were you using Link2Feed when there was an ignore button?
No, I'm new to the system.
So there used to be like a view, ignore, and dismiss button, and then everyone ignored. And it just caused a lot for the network administrators. And as everyone's different, like I'm not saying this is a generalization, I'm kind of just mentioning from our Link2Feed advisory board and just from what we've gotten from tickets is more of, either way, I guess it was the way it was before, it was putting it on the network administrators. So in this case, we've removed the ignore button, which does make it more work for the agency managers. But so far, the network administrators have said, they know it's hard, but they kind of would rather it that way, because they know that you probably have a better idea if it's a duplicate or not, as opposed to them. So we are looking at different ways we just want to make sure that we basically don't want to allow people to dismiss it that easily, but we do understand that we are trying to look into situations where there are a lot, that they're obviously not duplicates. So different criteria, like if the person has a first name and a last name, that is extremely common. We'll maybe search the address, maybe include the date of birth as well, and then narrow down, and show me the possible duplicates now after we put in the date of birth. So those are a couple of things that we recognize and that we're going to look into.
Yeah, I appreciate that information. Yeah, I definitely think an algorithm could make sense because the date of birth could be off for a little bit, but it seems like a pretty good way if you're entering the first name, last name, date of birth, maybe even the city or something, and then it looks at those things, and then that because I'm getting duplicates from all kinds of places that it's no way it could be my person.
Yeah, especially with the size of I can imagine like depending on especially with the size of the network, like if you're a small agency, if you're just one location, okay, but definitely if the system's checking across a whole bunch of agencies in an area, I agree that city is a great idea if you're covering a large geographic area.
Yeah, something like that, county or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for the info.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions before? Oh, sorry. Is it possible to include the agency name with the list of possible duplicates to help? It shows up on, I believe it does show. Let me just. It will tell you the location, the last location the person went to. So it's listed here. If you're not an open network, though, that would probably be restricted to you. So if you're a semi-restricted network, it's only going to show the last time they went to your location. But if you are open, it'll definitely display the last agency that it was. Okay, the next is the appointments feature. So I know not a lot of people use the appointments feature. Actually, let me move to something more general, and then I'll go to the appointments feature. A couple things that are going to be that should help agency managers and network administrators. So one is under the users section for any that have to add users. When you are adding permissions to the programs or the reports, there is a section under the programs to select all, but it's not under the report section. So we've added it under reports, so it just makes it easier, especially if you come up with new reports or if you want to add a new user, you don't have to check them off manually anymore. You can just select all, and it's a lot faster to just do that and then click save.
Reports.
Another option is that's been available is some food banks required more information on the household summary section on the services page. So for those that do track income amounts and expenses, they wanted to be able to quickly get a gauge when the client comes in on the summary box of the income, expenses, and the net. So this is a possibility to be added. It will not automatically be added to your household summary box. And the version rollout on Monday. There are instructions in the user manual, which I will show you near the end of how to enable it on Monday, but we are not going to put it there by default. It's just there and it's not like a package, like you can check one and not the other. Another improvement, one that we made for mostly applicable to network administrators is under the list section. So anyone who has access to manage lists, when you click on edit, we just made the UI more user-friendly, where it's very clear on each list which one is active, and by removing one, the active, after I confirm, it will turn gray to inactive. The edit and everything still works the same, and then you can easily click on activate to reactivate that option. So the next part I'm going to be talking about is appointments, and then after that, US specific programs. If you do not have a appointment program, and if you do not have CSFP program, a SNAP program, or use the TFAP tab, that is pretty much all that you really need to know for the features coming out on June 3rd. If there's anything that you would like changed, if you're a network administrator and there's anything that you would like changed, please submit a support ticket. You can do so ahead of time now from anything that you've seen, or you can do so whenever it goes live. If you'd like to review this, go to support, user manual. It should be on the main page because most people have been checking it out. So version 2.8, changes and features. Here's a list of everything that I've gone through and will continue to go through. And you can just click through. They have, there are screenshots so you can see what I've been going through and refer to that. There is a question, do most areas still take photo IDs with the new Link2Feed? I'm not, I mean, as far as I know, it pretty much varies. It depends on what country you're from, to be honest. I believe that I don't know many Canadian food banks that don't take IDs, but I very, very rarely see a US food bank with IDs. So as mentioned there in the comment, we're not allowed to request IDs. That's kind of like a standard across the US. I've probably seen one or two that have it. It's not, yeah, it's not something that's collected there. But in Canada, it is. So the question about where would I find the appointment program? If you do not have the appointment program, that is something that you're going to have to, if you're an agency manager, if you're not a network administrator, you'd have to contact your network administrator to set you up with that. There are YouTube videos about the appointment program and support pages about it. What I will just be going through what the new changes will be. So I don't think it would be as, it won't be as all encompassing. It probably won't give you as much information. But if you do want an overview, I would recommend checking out the user manual or watching a video about the appointment program. So agency visit limits. Sorry, Ashley, can you clarify what you mean by agency visit limits?
Stephanie, this is Jacob from the Eastern Illinois Food Bank. How are you?
Hi.
And when we first logged on to the call, it looked like there was an asterisk next to the name that said how many visits a particular person could visit an agency within a 30-day period.
Oh, yes. Oh, so okay. So that's just an, is it this one? Oh, no, maybe, sorry, not that one. It's this one.
Right there that says max per month.
Yeah, that's
not a setting or a network setting.
It's a network setting, but it's right now it's pretty much just it's just a notification. There is no restriction in the back end. It's just a notification that links to the services. I have the services page, but it doesn't update. Like basically, if I've had the 17 visits, it's not going to stop me from recording another one. It's just a notification to the user to let them know this person should only have this many visits.
That's something that the agency themselves can set, because I know that we have some agencies that do like to have notifications of limits within a certain period of time, within that period of time. Is that the new feature, correct, or is that something that we've maybe missed?
This isn't, so this maximum visits per month isn't new, but right now it's an old feature, but it is network wide. The rest of the year, we're hoping to make a whole bunch of settings that are network specific down to be agency specific. So hopefully, I don't have a specific timeline, but I can tell you that a lot of the network settings are going to be able to be turned on and off by agencies, so they'll be able to do that. Another one is a ticket that we are working on that didn't make it into the rollout was I think it was called like maximum intervals per month. So per program, and an agency being able to say my clients are only allowed to visit once a month, and some type of a notification if you click on the button that says, you only said one visit, they only have this visit. So that's something that's also coming, but currently we just have this maximum visits per month, and it is a network wide setting.
Great, thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, no problem. There are a couple other questions. Could you email a link to the YouTube videos? I can email it to you. I don't want to bother anybody else if they're not interested in it, but just for the YouTube videos, like if you just go to YouTube and click on, you don't even have to do it through the system. Like if you search for Link2Feed, if you go to Link2Feed's YouTube page and there's a search icon there, if you type in appointments, it'll show you all the features, well, all of the videos we have for appointments. So we have, looks like there's a playlist here and a short webinar just about appointments.
The term appointment is being used.
The advantage of the appointment program, so okay, the advantage of the appointment program, I would say, is this appointment program is mostly for food banks who are scheduling visits ahead of time. That's probably the biggest difference. The standard food bank visit, you click on new visit, you see the current date, and then you record the visit. The appointments is different, where instead of the current date, you're doing a date in the future. So, and then you have different statuses. So I'll highlight a few things as I go through the appointment changes, but I just wanted to keep going in interest of time and making sure this is applied to people. I just want to make sure those that have appointments can see it and leave if they have to. So for the appointments program, right now appointments programs are only food-based. So pantry visits, food bank visits can be appointments. None of the other ones can. That is going to change as of June 3rd. So any program, meal, employment assistance, financial assistance, any program can be appointment-based. So that means for the appointments list, the packing list, all of those will be updated to show any new appointment programs you've chosen to add. Next is creating an appointment. So I'm in the wrong agency. So when creating an appointment, usually it's not super easy or super intuitive to put in the time. So the pickup time, so we've added this UI here, so it makes it easier to go up and down. And then if you do track AM, PM, so if your user preference is the 12-hour format, you can do that. If not, then it will just show the 2 slots here. The same applies when you do hours of operation. So for anyone who's had to set up an appointment program, you'd be familiar with that. So under appointments, and you have to set the hours for the agency. You have profile, intake profile, and this is where my hours of operations are. So at the bottom, it used to say just Monday or whatever. You pick the day of the week and you pick the start time and the end time. So that still exists. So we have a weekly option where I'll pick the day, my start time and end time, And then again, these easy to use pickers here. Now we have different ones that can also overlap for it. So on top of weekly, you have cycle. So some food banks have said we are open Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and every fourth Friday. So in that case, we have the schedule, the weekly here, but I'm also open the fourth Friday. And then you can set start date and end dates. So if you have maybe a seasonal schedule, maybe your hours of operations are different at the end of the year or in the summer, you can set those all up right now so that they start and end at the right time. The last one is 1 day exception. The best example I have to use for this one is if it's during Christmas season. So during Christmas season, you have maybe, I know some food banks are only open for a certain period of time. So outside of their normal hours of operation. So that's where these would be added. What's your start and end time? And what's that specific date that you're open? Near the bottom, we have, usually when people set up the appointment system, they let us know what the caseload should be. So whether 3 every 15 minutes or 4 every half an hour. If you only have one one appointment program within your organization, then you will be able to access this. This is what your caseload is, and you can change it at any time. So right now it's 5 every half an hour for visits. Some track pounds, so some say I'm only giving out this many pounds between this period of time, pounds of food, but most of the time it's visits. So that can be adjusted by you. If you have 3, 4 different appointment programs, some have like a regular pantry appointment and then a USDA and then a TFAP appointment program. If that's the case, then Link2Feed still has to manage that because we can see the individual programs at the back end, while this just shows the one caseload. The other option here is to enforce caseload limit. So right now, if you do go over caseload, if I go over my 5 appointments in the 30 minutes, something will pop up and say, you're over your caseload. Are you sure you want to go over? And then you can click on yes and continue to create the appointment. By checking off enforce caseload limit, you're not allowing the users to basically record any more appointments outside of what is listed here. The calendar has been updated to show the actual hours of the days that have hours of operation in green, and then if there's a closure, it'll show in red. If you try to close on a day, say it's the 30th, I want to see, there we go. If you try to close on a day that already has appointments, this will pop up, letting you know that there's already appointments there and you have to reschedule them before closing this date. The next one is customizable statuses. So for anyone who uses the appointment program, under administration list, you will see appointment statuses at the top. So now you can remove any statuses that do not apply to you. You can edit them for whatever the terminology is that you use at your food bank, and you can also add new options. Just make sure that obviously you need at least one collected one so that you can change the status to collected, and one that's basically not collected so that everything doesn't be recorded as a visit. But as long as one has a parent type of collected, that's what's the most important. And the last change is on the appointments list. So the ability to bulk change appointments. Let's see if I can find. So once you check your appointments list, you'll see an appointment status section here. You would select a status. So usually what people have used to do this is if it's the end of the day and you want to check for the current date and change everyone's pending status to maybe not collected, you can do so by filtering it the way that you usually would. So none of these filters have changed. But then now I'll do not collected, And then there will be little checkboxes on the side where I can change these statuses to not collected. There's also a select all option. And then I can save my statuses. So looks like this one has already the status, so no point in changing it. And then this one, they've all updated these statuses. Okay. Are there any questions about the appointment changes? There's a question of, can I access Link2Feed now so I can familiarize myself before Monday? Are you referring to having access to the system in general or having access to the new features? So what food bank are you from? Do you have a test site available possibly that you can already access? The test site, the Canadian and, oh, okay. Yeah, okay, so you're on Salvation Army Canada. Okay.
Okay, about every visit that they come.
So if that's the case, just send me an email after this session, and I'll send you the test site credentials for the Salvation Army Canada
Yeah,
site.
that's what I thought too, but then I'm looking, well, maybe not, I don't know.
Okay, no problem. So the rest of the features that I will be going through are going to be US specific, SNAP, CSFP, and TFAP tab. And then otherwise that is it for the webinar. So anyone who doesn't have access to those programs, you are free to go. Again, you can access the details under support and the user manual. The webinar, sorry, not the webinar. Well, the webinar, since it's been recorded, there will be another portal announcement with the link to the recording of the webinar. And if there's anything, again, that you want turned on, if you're not a network administrator, you'd have to contact your network administrator for this feature. Some are network specific, and some can be turned on by agency. For example, if you want an appointment program or something. So that is it. And I will go on to the US programs.
Okay, don't have to listen now. Well, I got one useful thing that they have.
So the one change.
Access that.
Yes.
Thanks, Susan. And Mary Ruth, sorry. The one change for the CSFP is on the tab. There's one change on the tab. The difference is that basically the eligibility criteria has been moved up before the recertification log. So it's just a difference in the order. We found that it would be more helpful for the process where clearly you probably want to see the eligibility criteria before you see the recert button, because if they're not eligible, they can't recertify anyway. Also, the list can obviously get long, so you might have to scroll quite a bit just to get to the recertify. You might have to scroll quite a bit past recertification just to get to see if they're eligible. So we've moved it up here, and if you do want to see the log, it'll be here with the most recent setup. The next is CSFP screening. So for anyone that's not familiar with the screening option, so CSFP screening is similar to TFAP screening, which we also have. if anyone has TFAP, and it gives you the ability to collect a certain amount of information as a pre-screening tool to allow you to collect that and let the client know before completing the entire profile whether or not they're eligible for CSFP. So by clicking on this, you will see all the possible options I can track, but this is just the most options that I can track. Maybe I just need the last name, I need a date of birth for the age, and household size and income. And yeah, and then that's all you need. So you can limit basically, or you can decide what you want to track here, but once it's been selected, you can confirm eligibility and it will tell you, I'll show you the screenshot because I don't want to, in the interest of time, I don't want to go through a new profile. But basically, if they're eligible, it'll show a green button, and if they're not, it'll show a red button. You're still going to be forced to go through the profile. Whatever you completed in this pre-screening, so if I filled out all of this information, you don't have to fill it out again in the profile. So I don't have to re-put in the client's name or address. The only thing that you will have to fill out is if you did put more than one household member. If you put 2, then at the bottom of the personal page, it'll show anonymous household member, and it'll be red. You'll have to say who that anonymous household member is. For monthly income, no matter what you put in here, you still have to fill out the monthly income page, because this is the household monthly income, and the Link2Feed is not going to make the assumption that what you put in there only belongs to one person, and it doesn't encompass only one person's income. So that will allow you to, basically for the screening, allow you to let you know right there and then to tell the client if they're eligible or not. This is not going to be turned on for everyone who has CSFP. So if you do want the screening enabled, you can just submit a support ticket. There's a form to fill out just so you can check off and let us know what you want to track. And then they can set that up for you. So it will only show up if the agency, let's say you have a network where only some agencies have CSFP, it will only show up, that little new CSFP button will only show up if the agency has a CSFP program. Next is the services page. There is, as you know, there is an icon here that will show, or a little label will show where the client's official location is. If the location is not the same as the location that I'm logged into, you will get a warning. This is not the client's assigned location. If you want to cancel and go to the CSFP tab and make a change, if it happens to be a mistake, they moved and you forgot to change it, that's fine. But you can also just click on continue, and it will let you just continue to create the CSFP visit. It's just a notification letting you know, by the way, this is not what you said the client's official location was. Next are changes to the CSFP kit issuance list. So the status change date and status have been split up into 2 different columns. They used to be in one, so now they have been split up into separate ones, so that is easier to sort. And then there's a toggle for show deceased clients. By default, when you access this list, it'll be off, and you'll see at the bottom it's showing 1 to 10 out of 134, filtered from 138. If I turn this on, you'll see that it does then include deceased clients. So just depending on what you need the list for, if you're looking for past visits, you probably want to see anyone that has had visits, regardless of if they're deceased or not now. But by default, as soon as you access the list, it'll be there. It'll be off, sorry. Next is the TFAP program. So I will log into this site. So in the TFAP tab of the client's profile, there are a couple options that can be added. If you have the TFAP program and not the TFAP tab, then this will not be added automatically. This is just for people who are now using the TFAP tab. So there's an option to check ID. As you can see here, it's added as a row. So if I didn't check it off, this would be red. Then we also have city and county eligibility. So for those that are familiar with TFAP social eligibility, it's the exact same thing, except you get to restrict it by city or county. So as a network administrator, you would go under the list section, enter the list of cities or counties that you deem eligible for TFAP, and then you would submit a support ticket to Link2Feed and say, I want to enable city eligibility and county eligibility. So they can only basically certify if they have those check off. Probably don't need to do the same, both of them, just one or the other. We are also, what's not shown here, something that is being done in the back end, is state eligibility. So basically the system will check this client's address, and then it will check the address of the organization the user is logged into. If they're within the same state, then that's fine. But if they are not, then the client wouldn't be eligible to access TFAP within that state. Lastly, are changes to the SNAP program. So for the SNAP, usually when you record a visit, it automatically just takes the date for you. Now there's a date option. You can backdate if you need to. Obviously not forward date, it's not an appointment, but you can edit the date if needed. And then the other one is, the last one is customizable statuses. So under administration and lists, there are now SNAP statuses where the approved, denied, and submitted are locked. So those have to be there, but the rest are up to you whether or not you like to track them or change the label that you like to use for those. And those are all of the changes coming out for 2.8.